Welcome back, everybody. We're diving deep today into Cameco.
Cameco.
They're a big player in nuclear energy, and, you were kind enough to give me their 2024 Q4 management discussion and analysis.
Right.
So we're going to break that down for everyone listening, figure out, what's important, what to focus on.
Sounds good.
One of the things that really jumped out at me from this document is this idea that there's this global surge in demand for nuclear energy.
Yeah.
Everyone's worried about decarbonization, obviously climate change, but then also just like energy security.
Yeah, makes sense. It's a fascinating time to be following the nuclear industry, that's for sure.
Yeah, it really is. And it seems like Cameco is in a really, really good position to capitalize on this whole trend.
Yeah, they seem to be.
So for anyone listening who needs a quick reminder, Cameco, they're a Canadian company.
Right.
They mine and supply uranium, which of course is the fuel for nuclear reactors.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I thought was really interesting that they emphasized was this term full cycle value capture.
Yeah. Right.
So what exactly does that mean?
Well, it means that Cameco is involved in every stage of the nuclear fuel cycle.
Okay.
So from mining the uranium to converting it into fuel, and then even providing services for operating reactors. So it's a pretty comprehensive approach.
So they're not just digging it up and selling it.
No, not at all.
Okay.
They're really taking a very strategic, long-term approach.
Yeah.
It allows them to manage risks and maximize profits across the entire process.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. But, with uranium prices, they go up, they go down, they're constantly fluctuating.
Oh, yeah.
So how do they ensure that they have that consistent revenue? How do they make sure that they can, pay their bills, pay their employees and all that?
Yeah, that's a good point. Their focus on long-term contracts is really key. It gives them stability even when the market is, kind of going crazy.
Oh,
It's like a
okay.
safety net.
Yeah.
And they've also been diversifying their production sources.
Okay.
And they've been making some strategic purchases, all to kind of mitigate that risk.
That's really interesting. It's like they're thinking like 10 steps ahead.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, speaking of market stuff, the report really dives into the current demand for nuclear energy.
Right.
And it seems like it's absolutely skyrocketing right now.
Yeah.
They mentioned something like over 440 operational reactors globally,
Wow.
with another 62 under construction.
It's a lot.
I mean, what does that kind of growth, what does that signal for a company like Cameco, thinking about their future?
Well, it's a very positive indicator,
Yeah.
right? Like that number of reactors under construction, that's huge.
Yeah.
The U.S. alone, just the U.S., has plans to triple their nuclear capacity by 2050.
Really?
And you've got countries like China and India who are also expanding their nuclear program.
Wow.
So all of that, it translates into a huge increase in demand for uranium fuel,
Yeah.
which is what Cameco produces.
It seems like they're really in the right place at the right time.
They are, yeah.
Okay. Well, we're talking about all this growth, all this potential, but there's all this stuff happening in the world right now. We've got
Right.
the war in Ukraine, you've got that recent mine suspension in Niger.
Yep.
Is there even enough uranium out there?
Oh, that's the big question.
Yeah.
And this MD&A really acknowledges that there's this deepening supply uncertainty.
Right.
And this is being driven by all sorts of things: sanctions, trade restrictions,
Yeah.
and then just years of underinvestment in new uranium mines.
Oh, wow.
It's created a really, really challenging situation.
So we're potentially looking at a supply crunch.
I think so, yeah.
That's got to be creating some interesting, dynamics for a company like Cameco.
For sure.
So were they able to kind of navigate these challenges in 2024? Did they do okay?
Yeah. They did.
Okay.
They had a really strong financial performance in 2024.
Okay, good.
They secured some new long-term contracts for both uranium and UF6 conversion.
Wait, hold on. Can we break that down? What is UF6 conversion? Why is that important?
So UF6, it stands for uranium hexafluoride.
Okay.
And it's the chemical form of uranium that's used in the enrichment process, which you need to make nuclear fuel.
Okay.
So Cameco, they've got these conversion facilities,
Yeah.
and they take uranium concentrate from the mines and convert it into this UF6.
Okay.
So it's suitable for the next stage in the fuel cycle.
So they're kind of covering multiple steps in the process.
Exactly. Yeah. And that actually makes their business model even more resilient.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not just reliant on one part of the process.
Right. Right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So what about their outlook for 2025? Like, what's on the horizon? What are they focused on?
Well, they're focusing on what they call their Tier 1 assets.
Okay.
These are their most productive and cost-effective mines. Think of them as the workhorses
Okay.
of their operation. They're also investing in some really cutting-edge technology,
Uh-huh.
and they're expanding their reach into some new markets.
So, speaking of new markets, their investment in Westinghouse, that really caught my eye
Yeah.
because that seems like a really big move into the nuclear technology sector.
It is. It is.
So, what's the strategy behind that?
It's all about, expanding their reach across that entire fuel cycle.
Okay.
And it gives them access to new business opportunities.
Okay, like what?
Like, for example, small modular reactors. Have you heard of those?
SMRs, yeah.
Exactly.
They seem to be getting a lot of attention lately.
Yeah, they are. They're seen as kind of a more flexible and potentially a more cost-effective solution for nuclear power,
Yeah.
especially for countries with smaller energy grids or those looking to replace their aging fossil fuel plants.
Makes sense.
So through Westinghouse, Cameco can be a key player in the design, the construction, and even the fueling of these next-generation reactors.
So it's not just about riding the wave of this kind of nuclear renaissance.
Yeah.
They're actually like shaping the future of the industry.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it.
That's really impressive.
Yeah.
But we can't ignore the elephant in the room.
Right.
Nuclear energy, it's powerful, it can really help with decarbonization, but it comes with risks.
Oh, yeah.
So how does Cameco address those concerns about safety and sustainability?
Yeah, it's a crucial point, and Cameco definitely recognizes that.
Yeah.
They emphasize safety, environmental protection, and community engagement as really
Yeah.
core principles in everything they do.
Okay.
They've even set targets to reduce their own greenhouse gas emissions to align with those global climate goals.
So it's not just about profits for them.
No, definitely not. They're trying to operate responsibly and sustainably.
It's good to hear. But what about the specific risks associated with, what they do with mining? I mean, especially uranium mining.
Right.
That can have a really significant environmental impact. So how do they mitigate that?
Well, they have a very robust risk management program. It systematically identifies and addresses those potential risks across all their operations. This includes everything from environmental protection measures at their mines to ensuring the safe handling and transportation of nuclear materials. They're also investing in research and development
Okay.
to find even safer, more efficient ways to produce nuclear fuel.
So they're not just hoping for the best, they're actually taking concrete steps
Absolutely.
to address this wide range of risks that they face.
Okay, so this MD&A, it's giving us a really 360-degree view of their business.
It is. It highlights their commitment to transparency and responsible corporate governance. They're not shying away from the challenges, they're addressing them head on.
It seems like they're really playing the long game here,
Yeah, they are.
not just chasing those short-term profits.
Exactly.
Okay, well, let's dig a little bit deeper into their key assets.
Sure.
The MD&A, it provides a pretty detailed look at their major mines,
Yeah.
including, their flagship Cigar Lake operation.
And then the McArthur River Key Lake complex.
Right.
So what can you tell us about these sites?
Yeah. Well, Cigar Lake, it's an incredibly high-grade uranium deposit.
Oh, wow.
It's considered one of the most significant in the world.
Wow.
And it's an underground mine located in northern Saskatchewan, Canada.
Oh, okay.
And it's known for its efficiency and its low operating costs.
Interesting.
They actually exceeded their production plans there in 2024.
Really?
Yeah.
That's impressive considering, how complex uranium mining is.
Yeah, definitely.
What about McArthur River Key Lake? Is that another kind of high-performing asset?
Well, it is, but it's a little bit more complex.
Okay.
The Key Lake Mill processes the ore from the McArthur River mine,
Okay.
and both of those are located in Saskatchewan.
Okay.
Now, the mill, it performed exceptionally well in 2024,
Okay.
but the mine itself is facing some constraints in terms of increasing production. So they're working on bringing a new mining zone online to address this. And they're also investing in exploration to try and extend the mine's lifespan.
Okay, so they're facing some challenges there, but they've got a plan
Yeah, for sure.
to kind of overcome those challenges.
Yeah, that seems to be a recurring theme with Cameco. Anticipating potential problems
Yeah.
and developing solutions.
Yeah, I've seen that. Okay, well, let's move beyond Canada for a second.
Okay.
The MD&A also mentions their Inkai operation
Right.
in Kazakhstan.
All right.
So what's the story there? What's happening in Kazakhstan?
So Inkai is a pretty significant contributor to Cameco's overall production.
Okay.
It's a joint venture with Kazatomprom, which is the national nuclear company of Kazakhstan.
Okay.
Cameco has a 40% stake in the operation, which is a major uranium producer.
Okay.
And what's interesting is that Cameco doesn't purchase their share of Inkai's production at market prices.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They buy it at a discount to the spot price.
The discount.
Yeah, which is tied to Kazakhstan's pricing regulations for uranium.
Okay.
It's a bit complicated.
Yeah.
But it's a clever way to kind of capture value
Okay.
while also complying with those local regulations.
So a little bit of financial maneuvering.
Yeah, a little bit
Okay.
to maximize their returns.
Okay. So they've got Canada, they've got Kazakhstan,
Right.
but I understand they also have some idle assets.
They do, yeah.
What's going on with those?
So they've got Rabbit Lake,
Hmm.
another Canadian mine. It's currently in care and maintenance.
Okay.
They're also not producing anything from their U.S. assets right now.
Oh, wow.
But, they're constantly evaluating their options for these assets.
Right.
They're trying to minimize those care and maintenance costs while they watch the market
Yeah.
and wait for the right moment to potentially restart operations.
Okay.
They're not afraid to make those tough decisions,
Yeah.
even if it means temporarily idling those assets to make sure they're as profitable as possible.
So they're being really strategic about which assets are actively producing.
Exactly.
It's all part of that long game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of the long game, they're also investing in exploration.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Always trying to find that next big uranium deposit.
Always.
What's their strategy there?
Well, their exploration strategy, it's heavily focused on Canada,
Okay.
particularly, their core projects in Saskatchewan.
Okay.
But they're also exploring in Australia and the U.S.
Okay.
They're always looking for new opportunities
Yeah.
to expand that resource base.
Okay. So let's shift gears just a little bit. Let's talk about their fuel services segment.
Okay.
We've already talked about, that UF6 conversion.
Right.
But what else is happening on that side of their business?
Yeah. So as you know, Cameco is not just about mining the uranium. They're also involved in converting it into fuel and providing other services to those nuclear power plant operators.
Okay.
So they own and operate a conversion facility in Port Hope, Ontario.
Okay.
It's a key part of their full cycle strategy. And they've secured a number of new long-term contracts for those conversion services.
And that's thanks to the strong demand and the high prices that we're seeing in the market.
So they're really capitalizing on every single stage of this nuclear fuel cycle.
They are, yeah.
It seems like such a strategic and well-integrated approach.
It is, yeah. It's very impressive.
Okay, well, but what about the risks associated with these operations?
Yeah.
I mean, are there any specific challenges that they're facing in those conversion and fuel services segments?
Well, like any industrial operation, there are always risks,
Right.
Things like operational disruptions, equipment failures, and even potential accidents.
Yeah.
But they have really stringent safety protocols in place,
Okay.
and they're constantly working to improve their processes and technologies
Okay.
to try and minimize those risks.
So we've covered a lot.
We have.
We've talked about, their mining operations, their exploration, their fuel services segment. It's pretty clear that Cameco is, they're a major player in the nuclear fuel market, and they have this really, vertically integrated business model
Right.
that spans that entire supply chain.
Yeah.
But to really get it, to really understand their position, I think we need to look at their financials.
Absolutely.
What can you tell us about, their financial performance in 2024?
Well, one of the most impressive aspects of their performance in 2024 was their cash flow generation.
Okay.
They significantly increased their revenue, their gross profit,
Good.
which translated into a really healthy cash flow from operations.
Okay.
So this allowed them to do all sorts of things: invest in growth initiatives, reduce their debt, and then return value to shareholders through dividends.
Okay, very nice.
And they're projecting continued growth in 2025,
Mm-hmm.
driven by, those strong uranium prices, increasing demand for nuclear fuel, and the expansion of their operations.
Okay, so financially, they're healthy.
Yeah.
And they're well-positioned for growth.
They are.
But let's not forget about that Westinghouse acquisition. How is that expected to impact their financials?
The Westinghouse acquisition, I think it's a game changer.
Okay.
It really gives them this much broader reach in the nuclear industry.
Okay.
It allows them to participate in the design, the construction, and the servicing of nuclear reactors.
Wow.
And they're projecting significant revenue growth from Westinghouse in the coming years,
Okay.
driven by all these new reactor projects around the world and that growing market for SMRs.
Yeah.
So this is going to have a huge impact, positive impact, on Cameco's overall financial performance.
It's amazing how they've managed to position themselves across like the entire spectrum of nuclear technology.
Yeah.
They're involved in mining the raw materials, converting the fuel, enriching it,
Yep.
and now they're building the reactors themselves.
It's remarkable.
Okay.
It's a remarkable strategy,
Yeah.
and it seems to be paying off.
Okay. Well, but this is nuclear energy. It's not exactly risk-free.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So what are some of the challenges that they're facing? What are the big risks?
Well, they highlight a number of operational risks,
Okay.
things that could potentially impact their production plans.
Okay.
Think about, unexpected geological conditions at their mines, potential water inflows, ground movement. These are just inherent challenges in the mining industry.
So Mother Nature can throw a wrench in the works.
She certainly can.
Okay.
And then there are also the risks associated with operating in a very highly regulated industry.
Right.
Changes in government policies, environmental regulations, licensing delays, all these things can really impact their operations.
Right, because nuclear energy is under intense scrutiny, even with the push for decarbonization.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then, of course, you have those global risks, you know, geopolitical instability, sanctions, trade wars, all of these things can disrupt the uranium supply chains and impact demand.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It is.
It's like a whole complex web of risks.
It is.
Okay. Well, they also have to deal with the challenges of operating in those remote locations, right?
Right.
Their mines are often in areas with very limited infrastructure and access to skilled labor.
Yeah, that's a really good point. They have to recruit and retain,
Yeah.
a specialized workforce, often in these really challenging environments.
Yeah.
And they need to ensure their safety
Right.
and well-being.
Yeah.
Which is paramount
Yeah.
in an industry that's, inherently hazardous.
It's clear that, it's not just about maximizing profits for them.
Yeah.
They're aware of their social and environmental responsibilities.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
We've talked about their business model, their production assets, their financial performance,
Yep.
their risk management approach, their commitment to sustainability.
Yep. But, one of the things that really stands out to me in this MD&A is Cameco's commitment to innovation.
Yeah.
They're investing in technologies that could completely change the game
Mm-hmm.
for nuclear fuel production.
Mm-hmm.
And one example of that is they're really heavily involved in developing this global laser enrichment process.
Okay, GLE, you mentioned that earlier.
GLE, yeah.
I have to admit, it sounds pretty futuristic.
It is. It's very cool.
So what makes it so different from those traditional methods?
Traditional methods of enriching uranium.
Yeah.
I mean, GLE is potentially a major leap forward
Okay.
in terms of both efficiency and sustainability.
Okay.
It uses lasers to separate uranium isotopes,
Okay.
which is much more precise
Okay.
and uses far less energy
Got it.
than those traditional methods.
So it's more efficient.
Much more efficient.
But how does that translate into real world benefits?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
So for one thing, it could significantly reduce the cost
Okay.
of enriching uranium,
Okay.
which is a major expense in the nuclear fuel cycle.
Yeah.
And then perhaps even more importantly,
Uh-huh.
GLE has the potential to unlock this vast new source of fuel
Really?
by re-enriching depleted uranium.
Okay. Depleted uranium.
Have you heard of that?
I mean, isn't that the leftover stuff from
Yeah.
previous enrichment processes?
It is, exactly.
Okay.
So there are these huge stockpiles of depleted uranium
Wow.
all around the world.
Okay.
And right now, it's mostly considered waste.
Okay.
But with GLE, Cameco could re-enrich this material
Wow.
and turn it into usable fuel.
So recycling it
Yeah.
on a nuclear scale?
It's like turning trash into treasure.
Yeah. That's incredible.
It is.
It sounds almost too good to be true.
I know it does.
Are there challenges,
Of course.
with this?
Yeah, new technologies always come with hurdles.
Yeah.
Cameco still needs to complete their demonstration program,
Right.
secure those regulatory approvals,
Yeah.
and then prove to their potential customers that GLE is a reliable and cost-effective option.
Of course.
But if they succeed, it could be a game changer
Yeah.
for them and for the whole nuclear industry.
It sounds like they're betting big
They are.
on this, and I can see why.
It's a big deal.
I mean, it aligns perfectly with everything we've talked about, Their focus on sustainability and innovation,
Absolutely.
and they're not just looking to profit from this current, nuclear energy, boom.
Right.
They're trying to shape a more efficient and sustainable future.
Exactly. It's a really insightful observation.
Yeah.
They're not just reacting to these market trends. They're really proactively planning for the long term.
Yeah.
This MD&A gives us this glimpse into their vision
Yeah.
for the future of nuclear energy.
Okay.
And it's clear they see themselves as leaders in this transition
Yeah.
to a low-carbon world.
It's inspiring.
It is.
Well, okay, let's shift gears just a little bit.
Sure.
I want to talk about managing risk.
All right.
I mean, the nuclear industry is inherently complex
It is. It is.
and faces this really unique set of challenges.
Oh, for sure.
So how does Cameco approach risk management?
Well, they have this comprehensive risk management framework
Okay.
that covers every aspect of their business. Okay. So they've identified a really wide range of potential risks.
Okay.
And this includes things like geopolitical instability, supply chain disruptions, regulatory changes, environmental challenges.
Yeah.
And for each of those risks, they've developed mitigation strategies and contingency plans.
Okay, can you give us some specific examples
Yeah.
of how they're managing these?
Yeah, so take geopolitical risk, for example.
Okay.
They're aware of the potential for political instability
Right.
in the countries where they operate,
Yeah.
like Kazakhstan.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to mitigate this risk, they've diversified their production base
Okay.
with assets in multiple countries.
That makes sense.
And they've also built these really strong relationships
Okay.
with governments and local communities,
Yeah.
which helps to reduce their exposure
Right.
to that political volatility.
It's about spreading the risk and building those strong partnerships.
Exactly.
Okay. What about supply chain disruptions?
Right.
I mean, we've seen how fragile global supply chains can be,
Oh, yeah.
especially in recent years.
Especially recently.
How are they addressing that?
Well, they're focused on securing those long-term contracts
Okay.
with their reliable suppliers.
Okay.
They're also building these strategic stockpiles
Okay.
of their key materials.
Got it.
So they're not caught off guard
Yeah.
if there's a sudden disruption,
Okay.
and they're constantly monitoring that global landscape
Yeah.
for potential trouble spots.
So they can kind of adjust their strategy as needed.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's a very proactive and adaptable approach to risk management.
Very much so, yeah.
They're not just waiting for things to happen, they're anticipating those potential problems and taking steps to prevent them, to
Absolutely.
at least minimize their impact.
They understand that in an industry as complex and interconnected as nuclear energy,
Yeah,
you can't afford to be complacent.
right.
They have to be constantly vigilant and prepared for the unexpected.
Foresight and preparedness.
Yeah,
I'm sensing a theme.
I think you're right.
Okay, well, let's talk about one more aspect of risk management.
Okay.
That's super relevant to a company like Cameco,
Yeah,
environmental risk.
right.
I mean, they're dealing with radioactive materials.
They are.
The stakes are pretty high.
They are.
How are they managing those environmental risks?
Well, environmental responsibility is a top priority
Okay.
for Cameco.
Okay.
And so they have these stringent safety protocols
Mm-hmm.
and environmental protection measures
Okay.
at all their facilities.
Okay.
They're also investing in research and development to find even safer and more sustainable ways to mine, process, and transport that uranium.
Can you give me some, like, concrete examples
Yeah, sure.
of their environmental initiatives?
So they've implemented these programs to reduce their water usage at their mines,
Okay.
to minimize their carbon footprint,
Okay.
and to safely dispose of radioactive waste.
Okay.
They're also actively engaged in rehabilitating those former mining sites
Okay.
and restoring them to their natural state.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, and they're constantly working to improve their environmental performance, setting these ambitious targets
Okay.
and regularly reporting on their progress.
So they're not just talking the talk.
No, they're walking the walk.
They're walking the walk when it comes to environmental stewardship. That's good to hear.
It is.
Okay. Well, beyond these, operational risks, they also face financial risks.
Right.
Right. I mean, fluctuating uranium prices, interest rate hikes, inflation, all this can impact their bottom line.
Absolutely, and they acknowledge that
Yeah.
in the MD&A.
Okay.
So they're taking this multi-pronged approach to managing their financial risks.
Okay.
They've locked in those long-term contracts
Yeah.
to minimize their exposure to those volatile uranium prices.
Right.
They're actively managing their debt,
Okay.
maintaining a healthy balance sheet.
Okay.
And they're also keeping a really close eye on inflation
Right.
and implementing cost control measures
Makes sense.
wherever possible.
So they're taking a very disciplined and strategic approach to financial management.
Absolutely.
They're not just, riding the wave.
Yeah.
They're planning.
Planning the long term.
Exactly. That's a great observation.
Yeah.
And that long-term thinking is evident throughout this MD&A.
Okay.
They're not focused on just maximizing their short-term profits.
Right.
They're investing in their future.
Yeah.
They're developing new technologies,
Yeah.
expanding their operations,
Mm.
and really building a company that can thrive
Yeah.
in this, rapidly changing world.
Okay, well, let's zoom in on that long-term thinking a little bit.
Okay.
Because this MD&A also gives us some insight into their capital allocation strategy.
Right.
So how are they balancing their investments in growth with returning value to their shareholders?
So they have a very clear and disciplined approach to capital allocation.
Okay.
And their top priority is investing in those existing operations to make
Right.
sure they're efficient and profitable.
Makes sense. They're also allocating capital to strategic growth initiatives,
Okay.
like that Westinghouse acquisition and developing GLE.
Right.
And then, of course, they're committed to returning value to their shareholders through dividends and share buybacks.
It sounds like a balanced approach
Is that?
designed to kind of create that sustainable value
Yeah, exactly.
for all their stakeholders.
That's the goal.
But how are they making those investment decisions? What are their criteria?
Well, they're very focused on return on investment.
Okay.
They're looking for those projects that will generate really strong returns.
Yeah.
And that contribute to the long-term growth of the company.
Right.
They're also considering things like risk, strategic fit, and alignment with their overall business objectives.
Okay.
They have a really rigorous process for evaluating and prioritizing those projects
Okay.
to make sure they're allocating their capital wisely and effectively.
That level of discipline and
Yeah.
strategic thinking is impressive,
It is.
especially in an industry that, is often characterized by those boom and bust cycles.
Oh, absolutely.
It seems like they're really determined to break that cycle and build a company that's built to last.
Yeah, and that's a great point.
Yeah.
They're not just, riding the current wave of nuclear energy enthusiasm.
Right.
They're laying the groundwork
Yeah.
for a future where nuclear power plays this critical role
Yeah.
in a low-carbon world.
Okay.
And they're doing it in a way that's financially responsible, environmentally sustainable, and socially conscious.
That's amazing.
It is.
Well, okay, let's go back to their specific operations for a minute.
Okay.
The MD&A gives this really detailed breakdown of
Okay.
their key assets, including the flagship Cigar Lake mine
Yep.
and that MacArthur River Key Lake complex.
Right.
What insights did you get from their analysis of these operations?
Well, what really struck me was their commitment to operational excellence.
Okay.
They're constantly striving to improve efficiency, to reduce costs, and to maximize production
Yeah.
at their mines.
Okay.
So, for instance, at Cigar Lake,
Yeah.
they've implemented these innovative mining techniques
Oh, wow.
that have significantly increased their productivity.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? What kind of techniques?
Yeah, so they're using a technique called jet boring,
Oh.
which involves using these high-pressure water jets
Okay.
to extract the uranium ore.
Okay.
And this method is much more efficient and less disruptive to the environment
Okay.
than those traditional blasting methods.
Got it.
It also reduces the amount of waste rock
Okay.
that needs to be handled, which further minimizes their environmental footprint.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It sounds like they're really pushing the boundaries of
Yeah.
mining technology.
They are.
Finding new ways to extract those resources more efficiently and sustainably.
Absolutely.
What about MacArthur River Key Lake? Are they doing similar things there?
Yeah, they are. So they're using this combination of underground and open pit mining methods
Yeah.
at MacArthur River.
Okay.
And they're constantly evaluating new technologies and techniques
Yeah.
to optimize those operations.
Okay.
They're also investing heavily in exploration to extend the mine's lifespan,
Okay.
to make sure they have that long-term source of uranium
Got it.
for their fuel services business.
It's clear that they're being really strategic
They are.
about managing those assets, maximizing their value, but also, minimizing that environmental impact.
Right.
They're trying to do it all.
Exactly.
Well, they also have some idle assets, right?
They do. Yeah.
So what's their plan for those?
So, as we talked about earlier, they have a few operations that are currently in care and maintenance mode,
Yeah.
including that Rabbit Lake mine in Canada
Yeah.
and some assets in the U.S.
Right.
And they're constantly evaluating market conditions
Yeah.
and assessing the feasibility of restarting these operations.
Okay.
And they're also exploring other options, like potentially selling those assets.
If they no longer fit into their strategic priorities.
So they're not afraid to make those tough decisions.
No, not at all.
Even if it means divesting assets that were once considered core to their business.
Yeah.
It's all about adapting.
Right. It is. You got to be adaptable
to the market
in today's market.
and trying to, maximize shareholder value.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground,
We have.
from their innovative technologies and their risk management strategies
Yep.
to their operational excellence and their capital allocation discipline.
It's impressive.
It is. I'm curious to get your overall assessment of Cameco.
Okay.
Based on everything we've read here,
Yeah.
what's your take on their position in the market and their prospects for the future?
I think they're incredibly well positioned to capitalize
Yeah.
on this growing demand
Yeah.
for nuclear energy.
Yeah.
They have a really strong leadership team,
Okay.
a clear vision,
Mm-hmm.
a robust business model,
Yeah.
and this relentless focus on innovation. I've noticed that.
And they're also really deeply committed to sustainability and social responsibility,
Yeah.
which is going to be increasingly important
Yeah.
in a world that's demanding cleaner and more ethical energy sources.
Absolutely. It seems like they're firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, they seem to be.
But, the nuclear industry, it does face some headwinds, too.
Oh, absolutely.
When public concerns about safety, the challenge of waste disposal, the potential for proliferation, these are all issues that could hinder the growth of nuclear power.
Right.
So how do you see Cameco addressing these challenges?
Well, they're actively engaged in addressing these issues.
Okay.
Both through their own operation
Okay.
and then also through these industry partnerships.
Okay.
They're constantly working to improve those safety protocols,
Okay.
to develop new waste management technologies, and to advocate for responsible policies
Okay.
that promote the peaceful use of nuclear energy. They recognize that the long-term success of the industry really depends on addressing these concerns head-on
Yeah.
and building that public trust.
It sounds like they're not just focused on their own bottom line.
No.
They're trying to build a better future
Absolutely.
for the entire nuclear industry.
Yeah, for everyone.
But beyond these, industry-wide challenges,
Right.
they also face risks that are specific to their own operations.
Right.
Mining accidents, environmental incidents, regulatory changes. I mean, these are all potential threats.
Yeah.
So how are they mitigating these risks?
Well, as we discussed earlier, they have this comprehensive risk management program that covers every aspect of their business.
Okay.
And they've identified this wide range of potential risks.
Okay.
And they've developed these really detailed plans
Okay.
to either mitigate or manage those risks.
Okay.
And they're constantly monitoring their operations,
Yeah.
evaluating their performance,
Okay.
and making those adjustments to ensure the safety of their employees, the protection of the environment, and the long-term sustainability of their business.
So they're not just relying on a top-down approach to risk management.
No.
They're actually empowering their employees
Yeah, absolutely.
to be a part of that process.
Yeah, to flag things.
That's a really smart strategy
It is.
because it creates this much more resilient organization
Right.
and it creates that sense of shared responsibility
You're for sure.
for managing risk.
Everyone's got a role to play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've covered a lot of ground here, from their financial performance and their growth strategies to their risk management approach, their social impact.
It's a lot.
It is, but let's zoom in on one final aspect
Okay.
of their business, innovation.
Right.
We talked about GLE.
Yep.
What other innovative technologies are they exploring?
Well, they're exploring a wide range
Okay.
of innovative technologies,
All right.
from advanced mining techniques
Okay.
and digitalization to next-generation nuclear fuels
Okay.
and small modular reactors.
Yeah.
They really see innovation as a key driver
Yeah.
of their future success.
Okay.
And so they're committed to investing in research and development
Okay.
to maintain their position as a leader in the nuclear industry.
Can you give us some specific examples of their innovation initiatives?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
So in addition to GLE,
Okay.
they're exploring the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning
Okay.
to optimize their mining operations,
Okay.
to improve safety,
Uh-huh.
and to reduce their environmental impact.
Okay.
They're also investing in research on advanced nuclear fuels
Mm-hmm.
that are more efficient and produce less waste.
Okay.
And they're partnering with Westinghouse to develop those small modular reactors,
Yeah.
which are seen as a potentially game-changing technology for the industry.
It sounds like they're really pushing the boundary
They are, yeah.
of what's possible.
They're not just following the pack. They're leading the way,
Yeah.
forging a path toward a more sustainable and innovative future
Yeah.
for nuclear power.
They're not content with the status quo.
Nope.
They're constantly striving.
To improve, to innovate, to find new and better ways
Yeah.
to harness the power of the atom
It's really cool.
It is. It's really exciting.
Okay, well, this MD&A has given us a lot to think about.
It has.
It's a really fascinating look
It is.
into a company that's playing this critical role in the global energy transition.
Absolutely.
But before we wrap up, I
Okay.
want to ask you one final question,
Okay.
given everything we've discussed.
Yeah.
What's your key takeaway from this deep dive?
My key takeaway is that Cameco is a company that's built for the future.
Oh.
They have this strong track record of success.
Mm-hmm.
They have this clear vision
Yeah.
for the future of nuclear energy
Mm-hmm.
and this deep commitment
Yeah.
to sustainability and social responsibility.
Yeah.
They're a leader in the industry,
Yeah.
and they're setting this new standard for corporate excellence.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
They're not just a mining company.
Yeah.
They're a force for positive change in the world.
They're proving that it's possible to be profitable and successful
Yeah.
while also being a really responsible corporate citizen.
I agree. They're an inspiring example of how business can be a force for good.
For sure.
Well, on that note,
Yeah.
we'll wrap up
Okay.
this deep dive
Sounds good.
into Cameco.
Oh, cool.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the fascinating world of nuclear energy.
My pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those brain cells buzzing.
You know, it's incredible how they've really positioned themselves like at the forefront of innovation in the nuclear industry.
Yeah, they're doing some really cool stuff.
But innovation isn't just about like developing new technologies, right?
Right.
It's also about finding those creative solutions to existing challenges.
And one thing that stood out to me in the MD&A was their discussion of managing those idle assets,
Oh, yeah. That's a great point.
you know?
It's easy to get caught up in those new projects, but managing existing assets effectively, I mean, that's
Right.
crucial.
Yeah.
And Cameco's approach to those idle operations, you know, like the Rabbit Lake mine, that really shows their strategic thinking.
Yeah.
They're not just letting those assets sit there.
Right.
They're actively assessing the market.
Mm-hmm.
They're weighing the costs of maintenance against those potential benefits of restarting operations.
It's like they're always thinking a few steps ahead.
Yeah, like a game of chess.
Yeah.
They're minimizing costs while also keeping their options open for the future.
Right.
It's a good reminder that even in a really dynamic industry like nuclear energy, those sound business fundamentals, they still apply.
They do.
Yeah.
So whether you're an investor or just someone who's interested in the energy sector, Cameco's approach to like asset management, I think that's a really good lesson in strategic decision making.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They're constantly evaluating their portfolio, they're optimizing their resources, and they're really positioning themselves for that long-term success.
They are, yeah.
Okay, so we've covered their business model, their production assets, you know, their financials, their risk management,
Right.
their sustainability initiatives, and their commitment to innovation.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
But there's one more thing that I wanted to touch on.
Okay.
Something that I think is often overlooked when we talk about these companies.
What's that?
The human element,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
This MD&A, yeah, it's packed with all this data and financial projections.
Yeah.
But it also hints at, you know, the people behind the numbers,
Mm-hmm.
the miners, the engineers, the scientists.
Right.
All the people who make Cameco's operations possible.
That's such a crucial point.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about an industry that's highly technical,
Yeah.
often operating in these really remote and challenging environments.
Yeah.
So the expertise and dedication of Cameco's workforce, I mean, that's essential to their success.
Absolutely. And the MD&A, it touches on their commitment to safety and like employee well-being.
Yeah, they do a good job at that.
It's not just about profits. It's about creating a workplace where people feel valued and protected.
Right, exactly. They highlight their efforts to attract and retain those skilled workers,
Yeah.
you know, providing training and development opportunities, and then fostering that culture of safety and respect.
Right.
And that's especially important in an industry that, you know, that carries some inherent risks.
It makes sense. I mean, they can't really achieve their ambitious goals without a talented and motivated workforce.
Exactly, yeah. And this focus on people, you know, on building that strong and resilient team, I think that's another key takeaway for our listeners.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're an investor, evaluating a company, or just someone who's interested in how businesses operate, that human factor, it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, it's huge. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into Cameco, I kind of want to bring it all together.
Okay.
You know, we explored their operations, their financials, their strategies, the challenges they face, and their vision for the future.
It's a lot.
It is. So, what does this all mean for the listener?
Right.
Why should they care about what's happening in the world of uranium and nuclear energy?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Yeah.
So here's why it matters. Nuclear energy is playing this increasingly important role in the global energy mix. It's reliable, it's carbon-free, and it's a source of baseload power. And it's essential for a lot of countries who are trying to meet their climate goals. And Cameco, with their really unique position in the nuclear fuel cycle, they're at the heart of this energy transition.
And what I think is really fascinating is that they're not just, riding the wave of this nuclear renaissance.
Right.
They're actively shaping it. They're
Mhm.
investing in innovation, pushing those boundaries of technology, and they're setting those new standards for sustainability and corporate responsibility.
Yeah, they're not just reacting to the market, they're actually shaping it.
Yeah.
That's what makes them so interesting.
It's a really cool story. So as we leave everyone with this final thought, consider this. How might Cameco's strategic choices, their investments in technology, their commitment to sustainability, how might that impact the future of nuclear energy?
Yeah. How might their actions influence that global energy landscape and, our collective efforts to transition to that low carbon future?
Yeah, something to think about.
Definitely.
Okay, well, on that note, we'll sign off for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of Cameco and the nuclear energy market. Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those brain cells buzzing.
Thanks for having me.